Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Environment and Sustainability Committee meeting number 5 of 2022, 16th of June 2022. Check councillor attendance. All members of the committee are here. Commence with acknowledgement of country. Ipswich City Council respectfully acknowledges the traditional owners as custodians of the land upon which we meet. We pay our respects to their elders, past, present and emerging, as the keepers of the traditions, cultures and stories of a proud people. We have no business outstanding. Confirmation of minutes. Does any member of committee wish to discuss the minutes of the previous meeting? Then I'll ask someone to move. Thank you, Councillor Fechner. Seconded by Councillor Kunzmann. That the minutes of the Environment and Sustainability Committee held on the 5th of May 2022 be confirmed. All those in favour? And it is carried unanimously. Item 2, as we move into officers' reports, is flood recovery support, wildlife carers and private landholders. This is a report concerning flood recovery funding made available to wildlife carers and private landholders who are in partnership with Council. The funding in the form of a bursary was made available to eligible wildlife carers and landholders who have a registered voluntary conservation agreement or land for wildlife agreement with Council in response to the 2022 flood impacts. The purpose of the bursary was to offer immediate support to impacted carers and property owners caring for an increased amount of flood impacted wildlife. Does any councillor wish to speak to, ask questions of appropriate council officer? No? Then the recommendation is that the report be received and the contents noted. Does any member of committee wish to move? Thank you, Councillor Fechner. Call for a seconder. Councillor Kunzmann, thank you. I'll open the matter for discussion. I believe that this was a matter that Council most certainly needed to undertake to support wildlife carers and our conservation agreement landholders, to support them through the effects from that natural event. The impacts are detailed in the report, which are quite clear and obvious. If there's no further discussion, I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Unanimous and carried. Thank you. Item 3, potential acquisition of a land in South Ripley with Environ Plan Program and Levy funds. This is a report concerning the voluntary acquisition of 25.25 hectares of significant conservation land in South Ripley. It is proposed that the Ipswich Environ Plan Program and Levy funds be used to acquire this land and secure the site. Site location funds required are outlined in confidential background information. Does any councillor wish to ask questions of a council officer? I'll call forward the appropriate officer if that's okay.
Kay Kavanagh, Manager Environment Sustainability. Good afternoon.
Thank you, Ms Kavanagh. In brief, can you please just detail the benefits and any perceived risks with not acquiring?
Sure can. So the benefits, as outlined in the report, are quite good in far as the ecological values of the proposed property, containing wetlands on site, which is always a positive for protection of those important ecosystems and habitat areas for the city. And it's also within the koala conservation area, and a number of koala habitat trees are on site. Further, there are evidence of cultural significance and artefacts on site as well, and it sits within the corridor that Council has identified previously as far as the linkage between Flinders Goulman Conservation Estate and the White Rock Spring Mountain Conservation Estate. So there's quite a number of ecological and cultural values on site. As far as risks, the risk is proposed in the other way, like by securing that property within the conservation estate, it allows us to enhance and build those corridors, which is in line with the outcomes of the nature conservation strategy, and also Council's connection in the Flinders-Karawatha corridor program as well. So it's more the benefits than there are the risks, essentially. Yep.
That's great to hear. Could you detail in particular any specific cultural artefacts that have been identified on site?
There would need to be a full cultural survey done to clarify and verify those. So it's essentially just as what's been noted from a roadside assessment. So I wouldn't be able to get into the specifics at the moment. We'd need to get those culturally verified. Yeah.
Detailed.
Yeah.
Okay. As it is an acquisition, and this is the purpose of EnviroPlan funding. Yep. It's great to see that it is being operated, and this, of course, would connect into the wider network of our conservation estates. Yeah, absolutely. It bridges that connection between the two major conservation estates of the city and provides that wildlife corridor as well. And is because it is towards the most southern extent of the local government area, is there any localities in the neighbouring LGA where corridoring would be able to be achieved? Yeah, absolutely. Just south of the boundary is the Mount Perry Conservation Estate, which sits within Logan area, and then sort of through to the Scenic Rim area as well. There's a number of conservation areas in that, just below our boundaries. Yeah. So it does adjoin with those as well. That's excellent. Does any other member of committee wish to ask any questions? No? Thank you, Ms. Campbell. Thank you. Councillors, the recommendation is in two parts. A, that Council resolve to purchase the whole of the land in South Ripley as outlined in the confidential attachment 1 for environmental purposes. And B, that the method of acquisition be by agreement with the affected person or persons pursuant to the Property Law Act 1975 and the Land Title Act 1994. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Fechner. Seconder? Councillor Kunzman, thank you. I'll open the matter for discussion. Councillor Fechner.
Just speaking in favour of the recommendation here, it's pretty exciting that an opportunity like this has presented itself to us. There have been a few parcels of land identified by council over the years, I understand, that we haven't necessarily acquired but wish we had. And on the flip side of that, we've had lots of our resident and community groups throwing ideas for acquisitions at us as well. And we've taken each of those particular propositions on their merit and assessed them against our strategic priorities and our strategic intent, and we've had to say on a couple of occasions that we were unable to do that. So it's nice to see that we've got a parcel of land that we can purchase, you know, and preserve in perpetuity, and you know, add to the conservation estates that council owns. I think that this is one that will, you know, if it comes to fruition, the community will really rally behind us to see that we are expending those EnviroPlan monies as the community has always expected us to, in protecting our natural environment. And there's so many great opportunities. There's so many wonderful things that we can do with our conservation estates. We always need a little bit more cash in that way. Ms. Kavanagh will tell you that there's never enough for all of the wonderful things that we wish to do in this space. But yeah, I just want to speak in favour of the recommendation to acquire this land. Great opportunity for council.
Well said. Thank you, Councillor Fechner. Any other member of committee wish to speak to the item? No? Then I'll put the motion. Those in favour? It's unanimous and carried. Thank you. Item 4 is Queensland Fire and Biodiversity Consortium Annual Contribution. This is a report concerning the ongoing partnership and financial contribution to the Queensland Fire and Biodiversity Consortium. Does any member of committee wish to speak to an appropriate officer? I will call forward an officer if available.
Kay Kavanagh, Manager, Environment Sustainability.
Thank you, Ms Kavanagh. I do note that this matter has previously come to committee and been resolved by ordinary last year, and that process moving forward, we don't need to do this. However, for information to community, I think it is best for it, for transparency purposes, that we at least note it. I do have one question in terms of the there's quite a number of related parties there in the QFBC, hosted by Healthy Land and Water. During the process, is traditional custodians consulted with regards to burning practices?
Yes, they are, and they are. Traditional burning practices are being captured a lot more now, which is fantastic. If need be, I can ask Steph as well. We've been doing some work with our landholders out in the Little Liverpool Range area as well, working with them in sort of doing some workshops around traditional burning practices there, and that's been going quite successfully. And then we'll be looking at rolling that out more broadly. So, and other areas in South East Queensland have been doing similar with some great results. So, yes, it is really key. That's
very pleasing to know, and I'm sure it is still very fresh in everybody's minds that even though the most recent natural disaster was flooding, the one immediately prior was bushfire, and that of course there is always something with regards to natural events and impacts. There is always something new to learn, and I'm sure that even from the past with such a long understanding of the natural environment, there is still much more that we as a contemporary society can understand. Absolutely, and yeah, certainly planning for the next season. We don't lose sight of that year on year, even with the different weather conditions as well. So, yep. Thank you. And any other member of committee wish to ask anything? Yeah? Thank you, Ms. Kavanagh. Yep. Councillors, the recommendation is that the report be received and the contents noted. I'll ask for a mover. Councillor Fechner, a seconder. Councillor Kunzelman, thank you. I'll open the matter for discussion. No? Then I'll put the motion. Those in favour? It's unanimous and carried. Item 5 is Tea Tree Bioenergy Funding Annual Program Report. This is a report concerning Ipswich City Council's role in managing and delivering on revenue collected from the Tea Tree Bioenergy Facility. Ipswich City Council looks to manage and expend these funds in such a way as to offset social and environmental impacts from the facility and improve amenity and environmental values for the community through the provision of community proposed projects. This report highlights progress to date on current projects and proposes the list of projects to be developed upon and delivered in the 2022 to 2023 financial year and beyond. Does any member of committee wish to ask any questions? Mayor Harding, thank you. Appropriate council officer, please.
Kay Kavanagh, Manager, Environment Sustainability.
Thank you. And through the Chair, I'm just looking at Table 1, Ms Kavanagh, and it's the third item, the local land acquisition. And I can see that residents have asked for certain land, but it's currently zoned as commercial, residential. How are the discussions going with the residents on alternative parcels?
Yeah, so there's been a few discussions to date with primarily through the WAG group in regards to the acquisition of potential property there. Primarily, initially, we're looking at council-owned land within the vicinity there and investigating the opportunities for that to be used for ecological and particularly koala restoration, primarily because the funding isn't ideal for using for land acquisition, more for the rehabilitation.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you. Has this money ever been used for land acquisition?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
I don't think so.
No.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mayor. Any other member of the committee have any questions? Thank you, Ms. Kavanagh.
Yep.
Council's recommendation is that in accordance with the Tea Tree Bioenergy Funding Governance Arrangements, Council endorse the proposed program of projects to be pursued in the 2022 to 2023 financial year. I'll open the matter for discussion.
I'll move it.
I beg my pardon, I'll call for a mover. Councillor Fechner.
Yeah.
Seconder. Councillor Madsen, thank you. Now I'll open the matter for discussion. Mayor Harding.
The Willowbank Area Residents Group are very proud of this funding, and they're very judicious in projects that they put forward. They really do look at what's a good community benefit. So, you know, it's good to see these projects getting underway.
Absolutely. Any further discussion?
No, I just want to briefly just say that I speak in support of endorsing this proposal, because I know it comes with quite significant consultation with the community from council officers. So, yeah, thank you. I just want to speak in favour.
Thank you, Councillor Fechner. Anything further? Councillor Madsen?
I just wanted to add from my perspective, because I've been, involved as the local councillor. I think a lot of the projects are pretty meritorious. It's still just an evolving sort of program to see how to expend those money so that there's value for benefit. The funds continue to accrue. There's a substantial amount there. But there's no rush to go and spend it on something unwisely. So I look forward to some more works being done on what can be identified as a proper use for the money that is still substantially built up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Anything further? No, then I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Unanimous and carried. Thank you. Item 6, Cherish the Environment Foundation Limited. In March 2021, a report was presented to Environment and Sustainability Committee proposing that Council seek legal and governance advice in order to develop an exit strategy for Council from the Cherish the Environment Foundation. This is a report providing the final documents that make up the exit strategy for Council, including a revised draft constitution as provided by Cherish the Environment Foundation Board. Does any member of committee wish to ask any questions? Mayor Harding? Call forward appropriate officer.
Kay Kavanagh, Manager, Environment Sustainability.
Ms. Kavanagh. Mayor Harding?
Thank you. And through the Chair, Ms. Kavanagh, I guess the main question that the residents will want to know, I know we've asked this before, but just to clarify, just to reiterate,
Yep.
The land that has been purchased in the past with this funding, can it ever be developed, or what is in place to make sure that that land that is being protected and no one can sell it off for profit or for gain later?
Yeah, so primarily the land that's been purchased is for the primary purpose of receiving environmental offsets or koala offsets. And through that, through the state legislation and the Commonwealth legislation that's been enacted there, it does require for Cherish to have a covenant or other protective mechanism over that under legislation, and that's for the perpetuity of the impact. So therefore, if those trees are lost forever, then that protection remains forever. So that the property is secured from that perspective. Even if Cherish sell that land, they can do so, but the protection over those trees that have been planted or the area that's for offset remains. So there is pretty strong protection over it. Cherish have also identified that they're happy to work with council in putting extra levels of protection if we want to do that. Yep.
Thank you, Ms Kavanagh. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mayor. Any further questions? Thank you, Ms Kavanagh.
Thank you.
Councillors, the recommendation is that the Chief Executive Officer be authorised to negotiate and finalise the terms of the separation deed, deed of indemnity, Stockland, deed of indemnity QR and Grantchester Services Agreement to be executed by Council and to do any other acts necessary to implement Council's decision in accordance with Section 13(3) of the Local Government Act 2009. Do I have a mover? Councillor Fechner. Seconder, Councillor Kunzelman. You're working in a team today. I'll open the matter for discussion.
Noting that Council's intention from the get-go here was to develop an exit strategy and to explore those options and to see if we could do it in a way that was beneficial to us and our community, noting where we've come from. You know, your CFO and myself have both been Council's representatives as directors of the Board of Cherish the Environment Foundation. Significant amount of time and effort on both of our behalves has been put into, you know, diving in and understanding what Cherish the Environment Foundation is all about. And what we got to see was some really great outcomes for the local environment in Ipswich. And initially, this was paid for by the ratepayers of our city. So a really important piece of work and an unusual vehicle for a local government to carry out its environmental endeavours, but significant, you know, protections on parcels of land that would never have otherwise been possible without that $1 contribution for many years of every single ratepayer going to it. And Cherish making wise and strategic investments in where they were acquiring land and delivering offsets. That's something that we heard Ms Kavanagh confirm. That can't be taken away from our community. Those protections on those offsets are governed by stringent state and federal government legislation that says those protections stay in perpetuity. So I guess it's for Council a strategic departure for how we wish to deliver our environmental initiatives, but certainly a worthwhile one when it was first created and has delivered some amazing results to the local government area. It's you know, offsets are increasingly tricky business. There's you know, lots to unpack when you're talking about the kinds of offsets that you're able to deliver. We could talk about it for ages, but over the years, legislation has changed and flexed and moved to I guess, gain better protections for specific species of floral and fauna. So as legislation changed, the ability to deliver certain offsets became more difficult, others became more easy, but it all became more prescriptive in the name of actually making sure the right flora and fauna were being protected in the delivery of those offsets. And that's something that Cherish was able to, you know, move with the times and do along the way as well, including recently in its dealings, continuing to do the good work for the community. They've got wonderful connections with Queensland Trust for Nature, who, you know, this is their bread and butter, but Cherish have been doing it for the community as per our constitution, which said that those monies would be expent on endeavours locally here in the Ipswich LGA. So some great stuff has been achieved there. And I want to thank Mr. Jeffrey Keach, a very busy man, offering all of his wisdom and time to ensure that the governance was right, that we were crossing every T and dotting every I, but also using it as a great learning experience along the way. So thanks to Mr. Keach as well.
Thank you, Councillor Fechner, and I would also like to support that comment also to yourself and to CFO for the time and energy that you've given to this, and for us to be able to arrive where we are moving forward now, looking towards more contemporised arrangements as a local government. So thank you both. Mayor Harding.
Could I also thank Councillor Fechner and Jeffrey, but I would say with Councillor Fechner, when we first formed as a council, there were a number of directorships and duties to take on board, and we knew that whoever was going to take on Cherish was going to be a lot of reading, a lot of meetings, that it was going to be complex, and we needed someone who'd champion the residents and the environment as well. So you're the only one to put your hand up, so thank you very much for doing that, Councillor Fechner, and you've done a terrific job. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't regret doing that because it has been a great learning opportunity for me along the way. So to be able to have done that, and I've certainly fielded lots of inquiries from the community who were, I guess, inquisitive about what Cherish was. Cherish, like many council initiatives, we always say time and time again, just bad about, bad with celebrating those wins, communicating to the public what exactly we're doing, and once you look a little bit deeper into what Cherish has done, I mean, it's just another great initiative of this council, but strategically time for us to part ways, and not with significant piles of legal advice pointing us in the right direction, to ensure that it's well executed and that everything is falling into place.
Any further discussion? No? Then I'll put the motion.
Chair, sorry, would you indulge me just to,
Absolutely,
if I may, just extend thanks also to Kay Kavanagh and to Paul Mollenhauer, who, with the roles played by council's representatives as directors, have really had to step up and navigate through this, rather complex matter. And obviously we've sought external advice because we're just acutely aware of the importance of doing this properly and thoroughly and with all, good governance, and also to our internal legal team. So if I could just extend thanks there through you, Chair.
Most certainly. Thank you, CEO, for highlighting that. Anything further? Then I'll put the motion. Those in favour? Unanimous and carried. Thank you. There are no notices of motion that I am aware of. There are no matters arising or procedural motions and formal matters. I'll close the meeting at 1:25 p.m. and the next committee shall commence at 1:35 in 10 minutes' time. Thank you.